I guess this leads me into a lot of your work. You've done the work to get to where you are now.
Mm, yeah.
What are the techniques and things that you are applying with your clients to help them catalyze so they may not have to struggle like some of us did with our experiences and kind of get there faster?
Yeah, everything for me is I everything that I teach I've gone through.
Yeah.
Otherwise I won't teach it. And it was about 3 years ago where I was seeing a naturopathic doctor for, I had hamstring issues and wasn't healing. And, you get old and you're like, oh man, I can't run like I used to. And so she, I was talking to her about some of the challenges I was having. And she was like, you should read this book called Gene Keys.
Mm.
And I was like, Gene Keys? She was like, yeah, it's about, your DNA and, how your DNA codes into who you are. And I was like, well, it was so esoteric at the time. And I was like,
Yeah.
okay. So I bought the book and I had all these questions about life, the universe, past lives, where we come from, so on and so forth. And I picked this book up and it was literally like Da Vinci's Code.
Hmm.
I opened it and I couldn't get enough of it. And everything that I was saying was so true. I felt every single vibration in my body of the information that I was learning. But it was so much at the time, it was just like drinking out of a water hose.
Mhm.
And so I just started peeling it layer by layer like an onion. Just every day I would listen to a little bit. Every day I'd learn a little bit more. And then I'd have these experiences and I would relate and understand how it relates to me. And so eventually what I did is I ended up going through some of the courses within the Gene Keys. And then I ended up getting certified.
Mm.
And I use this system because this system gives you the fabric of a mind map or a roadmap into your level of consciousness, but exactly where you're at and where your gifts lie, where your passions are, what you should be doing for your life's work, what keeps you healthy. It's all in there.
Mm.
And if you decode it and you break it down in a very rational way, it opens you up. It opens you up to a whole host of possibilities. So, the way that Gene Keys works, there's 64 codes that respond to human DNA, as you know, right? And because of that, there's 64 codons. And so these are patterns that we've kind of taken and intertwined and wrapped into psychology and states of psychology so that we can open up our DNA and create an activation to be able to raise our frequency, which is based on our attitudes. So it's this transmission of consciousness that's based on astrology. So the Gene Keys is built off of astrology, the I Ching, and then human design. So they all correlate. Pretty much the main systems or modalities that people use for a higher understanding.
Mm-hmm.
JP Morgan used astrology. Some of the greatest people in the world have used astrology. It's all tied into Gene Keys. But now you're getting a specific understanding of, hey, this is what I struggle with. This is my choice of suffering. This is what I fear most. These are my gifts. If I live here, I start to access higher levels of consciousness, but I also get to access higher levels of purpose, satisfaction, gratitude. And then this is my true essence of who I really am supposed to be. And that is more of a lifelong journey because it's almost like a Christ-like consciousness of just being a Buddha or a Yoda, type of just being. And that's a form of enlightenment that I think is very hard for anybody to attain because it requires you to give up all of who you are.
It's really, really fascinating when you talk about that. It brings up this notion, if you could decode information and tap into your true higher self, that alone can unleash potential with you, right? These two things that I feel so many struggle with, understanding themselves and also understanding kind of purpose and the information within them already. Because you're right, we all come with this information. And I feel like so much of what true medicine should be is just decoding that and allowing the body to heal itself, not trying to force new information into the body, which then just confuses the person on the higher self as well. When you're putting all that different information into the body. What are the types of things? Do you have any instances of clients you've worked with that have truly transformed through the application of Gene Keys? I'm sure you have tons.
I've everybody within one session, everybody within one session, an hour to 15 an hour and a half. And it's tough because there's a lot to swallow.
Mhm.
But, for instance, I just started a course with a friend of mine who's a psychic medium, Candice Rebollo. And we created this course called Venus Illumination, which is about finding love within yourself through using one of the sequences in Gene Keys, which is the Venus sequence, which is all about love in your relationships. And it's a 6-week course, and we're on week 2. And when I tell you that I think I've cried, the people in the course have cried more in these 2 weeks than they probably have in 5 years,
Mm.
it's so deep and so profound when you can get to the core of exactly why we suffer, because we all suffer. It's just the choice of suffering we choose. And when I say suffer, it's not to make it a derogatory, word, but it's a term that's used to show what we fear most and where we live in that and how we act that out. Because every time something happens to us, there's a action or a reaction that happens in the world. So when there's excessive shopping, or there's excessive smoking, or you just want to be lazy, or you just want to, run and do certain things that you probably shouldn't be doing, it's because there's something happening to you that you don't know how to cope with. And that's why we're stressed. That's why there's disease. Disease is really just rooted in the core of death, the fear of dying. That's the greatest human fear. Even though you may say, I'm not afraid of death. When you really get down to the core of it, the greatest human fear is death itself.
And I saw you posted something about that. I was actually going to ask you about that, because there is a lot of fear out there in the world, and a lot of fear of death. And, you got to understand that in some ways it may seem logical. Like, who wants to die, right? Who wants to go through that and suffer and kind of end their life, and the possibilities of everything that could come later in life, and how much more you have to it and your expectations of what life is. How do you work with people to say, there should be no fear of death? There should be no, that shouldn't hold you back from being your true self. Because I know so many people that have it, and I find it hard to connect sometimes with them and say you shouldn't have that.
There isn't anything that you can say that someone shouldn't have,
Yeah,
because that's all a part of their journey,
sure.
right? Anytime you diminish someone's feelings, it diminishes what they're supposed to learn, right? So I always say that there's no wrong emotion to have at any time. There's no wrong anything. There's no wrong action that you can do, even though as a society we may look at it as horrendous or despicable. There's no wrong action that anyone can do, because it's all based on evolution.
Mm.
It's all based on the greatest reason why each and every one of us are here, which is to evolve, and to evolve the human race. So when you truly understand that, you start to be gentle with yourself, right? You start to allow yourself to be more patient. And the great thing I love about Gene Keys that's very different than a lot of other, I would say, teachings, is that it's very passive. And when I say passive, it's more of a self-parenting tool than this is what you need to do to change your life, right? It's more of it's poetry. It's allowing you to feel, allowing you to walk through it, allowing you to contemplate what it actually is, be patient, think about it, and then come back to it when you're ready, right? There's no, we have to do this. It has to be
Right.
like this. It's when you want, where you want, and how you want it. And every time you go through something that's happening in life, a new experience, your job is really just to take that experience in and see how it applies to what you're here to learn.
Yeah. And really that act of healing or evolving or changing yourself needs to come from within. We can't listen to anybody, to the true instructions, which you all try and do. We all try and have someone just tell me what I should do, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the reality is that person can't. It wouldn't be your journey anymore. And
Yeah.
that's something we like to say, even within medicine with patients. We're not giving you a treatment program that is because we feel you need it. We're trying to tap into you and ask it, and we're just decoding and passing it back to you and
Yeah.
saying, this is what your body is asking for. It's
Mhm.
not like a set protocol it's your protocol because it's only for you. And I feel that extends throughout life. We have to figure out how we are going to evolve and become our highest selves by ourselves, but of course, with the help of so many others.
Exactly.
but
Exactly.
ultimately it's through our own actions and decisions, and no one else can do that for us. So
Yeah.
I'm vibing on this idea of it.